She said it while carrying a lamp. Not dramatically. Not with eye contact. She was sideways in the doorway of her new flat, negotiating a floor lamp around the door frame. And I had the other end. And she said it quietly, like a person noting something they had already decided. I picked this apartment because of you. I thought I had misheard her. I was still thinking that 3 months later, which tells you something about my survival instincts, and also, possibly, about the quality of my listening. My name is Raphael Voss. I'm 37. I design exhibition spaces, the rooms inside museums and galleries where other people's work lives, the architecture of looking. I am good at understanding how a space should feel before anything is put inside it. I am, as it turns out, considerably less good at understanding this when the space in question is my own life. I live in Flat 4B, on the 5th floor of a converted warehouse building on Calder Street. I have lived there for 2 years. The building has good bones and bad lifts and a roof terrace that gets afternoon light from March to October, which was the reason I took the flat and the reason I have never seriously considered leaving. I work from home 3 days a week. I know my neighbors by sound more than by sight. The couple in 4A who argue productively, the retired professor in 4C who plays piano badly but enthusiastically, the general low hum of a building that is full of people living their actual lives. She moved into 4D on a Saturday in October. Her name was Clara Obi. She was 34, she was an archivist at a university library, and she arrived with 11 boxes, a floor lamp, 2 bags of linen, and a very clear sense of what she was doing. The quality of someone who has made a considered decision and is now simply executing it. She had short, natural hair, reading glasses she kept pushing up her nose even when she wasn't reading, and the particular energy of a person who is comfortable in silence because they have a good relationship with their own thoughts. I had held the front door for her when she arrived with the first load. I had helped because it seemed obvious to help. I had kept helping because she was methodical and efficient and didn't make helping feel like an imposition, which in my experience was rarer than it should be. We had carried most of her flat up 5 floors across 90 minutes. The professor's piano audible the whole time, working through the same 12 bars with patient inaccuracy. And I had learned, in that 90 minutes, that she was precise about which boxes went where. That she narrated the process slightly under her breath, and that the one box she kept carrying herself, a medium-sized one sealed with brown tape and labeled in black marker, "Keep separate," she had not once put down or asked me to take. The lamp was the last thing. We got it through the door. She set her end down, I set mine down, she pushed her glasses up, and she said it. I said, "Sorry?" She looked at me with the expression of someone who has said the true thing and is not going to unsay it, but is also not going to perform it. I've lived in this city for 4 years. I've moved twice. The last place was fine, but the building was. It was the kind of building where everyone was very careful to have nothing to do with each other. She looked around her new flat. Bare walls, boxes stacked, afternoon light coming through the window at the angle that meant the building was facing right. I met you at Jonah and Nadia's thing in August. I remembered that. A housewarming. We had talked for 20 minutes about the ethics of renovation in listed buildings. It had been a good conversation. I had thought she was interesting, and then I had gone home and not thought about it again, which I was now reconsidering. You moved flats, I said, because of a 20-minute conversation. I moved flats, she said, because of the kind of person who has a 20-minute conversation about listed buildings at a housewarming and means every word of it. She picked up the Keep Separate box and walked toward the bedroom. You don't have to do anything with that information. I'm just not interested in pretending things are other than they are. I stood in her hallway, in the afternoon light, with the lamp between us. I had absolutely no idea what to do with that. So I said the only available thing. "Do you want help with the rest of the boxes?" She called from the bedroom. "I've got it from here." I went back to 4B and thought about it for approximately 45 minutes, which is longer than I usually spend thinking about anything that isn't load-bearing or lighting. My conclusion was this. She had been friendly and direct, and probably meant it as a compliment rather than a declaration, and I had possibly misread the register. And the correct response was to be a good neighbor and not make it strange. I was good at this conclusion. I held it for almost a week. She knocked on my door on the following Thursday to ask if I knew why the hot water pressure was inconsistent in the mornings. I told her about the building's boiler rotation. She nodded, thanked me, and left. This was a normal neighbor interaction. I was fine. She knocked again on Saturday to return a parcel that had been left outside my door. Also normal, also fine. The third time was not a knock. I was on the roof terrace on a Sunday afternoon in the pale October light, with a site plan I was trying to think through. And she came up through the terrace door with a book and a coffee, and looked at me without surprise, as though she had known I'd be there. "Is this shared?" she said, meaning the terrace. "Officially. Nobody else uses it much." She sat in the other chair. There were two, left by a previous tenant, and opened her book. And we sat there in companionable silence for an hour and a half that I could only describe as the most comfortable I'd been in a space in a very long time. She did not talk. I did not talk. The light moved. She turned pages. I looked at the site plan and occasionally actually saw it. When she left, she said, "Same time next week?" I said yes before I'd decided to. She nodded and went downstairs. And I sat there in the cooling afternoon and thought about what it meant that she had known I'd be there, that she had brought 2 coffees. I looked down and saw them. She had left one on the table beside me, in a travel cup from the university library, still warm. I had poor survival instincts around women who planned 2 coffees ahead. The Sunday terrace became a fixture. Not a plan. We never agreed to it, never confirmed it. It simply accumulated into something we both showed up for. We talked some weeks, and not others. I learned that she worked with documents that were sometimes centuries old, and treated them with a careful attention that was not reverence so much as respect. The attitude of someone who understood that fragile things could still be used. You just had to know how. She learned that I found most exhibitions too loud for the work inside them. That I thought about negative space the way other people thought about furniture. That I had been in this building for 2 years and had eaten at every restaurant within walking distance and had opinions about all of them. She also learned, I think, that I was still holding her at a slight angle, still processing. Still, if I was being honest with myself, which I was becoming, still not quite believing that she had meant what she said in the hallway. The 3rd Sunday in November, she brought a thermos of tea instead of coffee because the temperature had dropped. And she said, without looking up from her book, "You're still thinking about what I said when I moved in." "I'm not." She turned a page. "You do a thing when you're processing something. You look at the middle distance and then at your hands." I looked at my hands. She did not look up. "That's not evidence," I said. "It's not meant to be evidence. I'm just noting it." She closed the book on her finger. "You can ask me about it, if you want to." I looked out over the rooftops. A pigeon landed on the parapet and regarded us with the flat indifference of a Calder Street pigeon. "Why me?" I said, specifically. She considered this with the seriousness she gave to everything. Not performing the consideration, actually doing it. You were talking to Jonah's colleague about something that had gone wrong on a project, she said. Not complaining. Explaining, like you were still working out what had happened and what it meant. You were interested in your own mistake. She pushed her glasses up. Most people aren't. Most people are defended about their mistakes. You were just curious about it, like the mistake was useful information. I thought about that. That's a specific thing to remember. I'm an archivist. I remember specific things. A pause. I also thought you were very good looking, in case that needed to be said. I looked at her. She looked back at me with the expression of someone who has said the true thing and is not going to flinch about it. There was a beat of silence that was doing quite a lot of work. I'm not good at being. I stopped. Tried again. I don't have a lot of experience with someone being certain about me before I've done anything to earn it. She tilted her head. I didn't say I was certain. I said I was interested. There's a difference. She turned back to her book. Certainty comes later. That's what the time is for. The pigeon left. The light went the particular gold of late November. I did not look at my hands. 4 weeks later, she knocked on my door on a Wednesday evening, which was not a Sunday, and therefore not the established rhythm. And when I opened it, she had the keep separate box under her arm. I looked at it. She had never brought it out since the day she moved in, as far as I knew. I want to show you something, she said. You don't have to react to it. I just think you should see it. I let her in. She set the box on the kitchen table and opened it, and I looked inside. It was a city. Not literally, it was a collection of things that amounted to one. Maps of the neighborhood, folded and tabbed. Printouts of the building's listing and its conversion history. Photographs of the roof terrace taken from street level at different times of day, showing the light. A folded program from an exhibition I had worked on 2 years ago, before she'd moved here. With a paragraph circled in pencil. Something I'd written in the notes about how a room could be designed to make a person feel found rather than observed. Underneath it all, a printout of the listing for Flat 4D. She had annotated it, not extensively. Just 3 words in the margin, in the same black marker as the box label, beside the line that said, 5th floor, south-facing, shared roof terrace access. The 3 words were, same as him. I stood there for a long time looking at the box. I'm not showing you this to pressure you, she said, from the other side of the table. Her voice was quiet and even, the way it was when she was being precise. I'm showing you because I think you've been waiting to understand it properly, and I think you understand things better when you can see the primary source. I looked up at her. She was watching me with the patience of a person who worked with things that required patience, the long view, the careful handling, the trust that the document would yield what it contained if you approached it correctly. You circled something I wrote, I said. It was a good sentence. How long before you moved in did you? 2 months. She said it without apology. I want to be clear that I'm not a strange person. I'm a person who, when I find something I think is valuable, does research. You researched me? I researched the building. You were part of the building's... She paused, a suggestion of amusement. Architectural context. I laughed. It came out surprised, which was accurate. She smiled, not the managed expression she sometimes wore in the lift or the building hallway, the real one, the one that arrived without announcement and made the room briefly different. I owe you something, I said. She waited. I stopped. The site plan version of this. I had a space, and I didn't know what it was for yet. And I'd been careful with it in the way you're careful with spaces you don't want to get wrong. I haven't been certain. I've been interested. I want to be accurate about that. I looked at her. But I think I've been on the roof every Sunday for 2 months, and I've been counting the days between Sundays. And I have not done that since I was 22. And I don't think it's about the light. Something in her face went still. Not with surprise, with something quieter than that. Clara. I crossed the kitchen, and I was standing close to her. The box between us on the table, the maps and the photographs, and the circled sentence. You were right about the flat. I think you were right about more than the flat. And I should have said this before now, but I needed to actually know it before I said it. And I know it now. She looked at me for a long moment. Her voice, when it came, was very quiet. I knew you'd get there. You couldn't have known that. I work with incomplete records, she said. I've learned to trust what the evidence suggests, even when the record isn't finished yet. She held my gaze. The evidence suggested you. I took her hand. She turned it over and held mine back, and we stood in the kitchen with the box open on the table between us. All the careful research, all the evidence, all the months of slow accumulation. And I understood, finally, what she had known in August. That some things are load-bearing. That you can see it before you can name it. That she had looked at a space and understood what it was for before a single thing was in it. Her glasses had slid down her nose. I pushed them up. She laughed once, quietly, and leaned in, and I met her there. From 4C, audible through the wall, the professor arrived at the same 12 bars and played them. For once, exactly right. 6 months later, the Keep Separate box lived on the shelf in my studio between 2 architecture monographs. She said it belonged there. I said I could think of a better place for it. She said we had time. We had time. A year after that, she brought the travel cup from the library and left it on the roof terrace, on the table between the 2 chairs, as though it lived there. It did, from then on. When people asked us how it started, and they did. Because the story had the quality that stories have when they are also slightly ridiculous. She told them about the lamp and the hallway, and the look on my face when she said it. She told it with precision and mild amusement, and the expression of someone who had been right and was comfortable with having been right. I told them about the box, about standing in a kitchen and looking at a circled sentence and a 3-word margin note, and finally understanding that I had been the primary source all along, that she had seen what the room was for before I did. It wasn't new what we were. It had simply been waiting for me to catch up. She had known I would. She had done the research. What would you have done if someone told you, right at the beginning, that they'd chosen to be near you before you'd done a single thing to deserve it? And have you ever had someone see something in you clearly before you could see it in yourself? Tell me your story in the comments. If this one landed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.